In order to explain how annotative text works, I'm first going to draw a box, and the box will be 1000 millimeters wide by 1000 millimeters high, and this will help to explain how text scales automatically. To the side of this, I'm going to create some text, so I need to set my text style to Arial 200 and pick up the multi-line text tool and draw in a text box. And this is going to be Arial 200, like so. So I've got some text that's 200 millimeters high, and this of course is at 1:1, which is how we draw everything in the model space in AutoCAD. Now when we come to print this out, we don't normally tend to print 1:1. We, in our industry, print at 1:25 or 1:50. So this text will be scaled down. Now, if this text was scaled down 25 times, then we would have 200 divided by 25, which gives us the text height of 8 millimeters. So on our page, at 1:25, it would be 8 millimeters high. So you can see that we really have to consider what size text we use in our model space so that when we scale it down, it doesn't become so small that it's unreadable on the page. AutoCAD has a tool that really helps us with this, and we don't have to do any of the calculations. It's called Annotative Text. Sometimes we want the text to grow and shrink, for example, if we want it to stay inside of a box. But there are other times when we want it to actually maintain its height so that it stays readable at different scales. So I'm going to set up a text style now that's going to be annotative. So we're going to come down to the A with a paintbrush, which is our text style manager. We're going to create a new text style, and this will be Arial 8, and it's going to be annotative. Click OK, and at this point I'm going to make sure that I tick the annotative checkbox. And you can see that now it's not asking for the height of text, it's asking for the paper height, and that's important. In here then I'm going to put 8 for 8 millimeters. It's set to Arial, so I can apply. I'm going to set current and click close, and now that means that my tool is now set for Arial 8 Anno. So I'm now going to insert an Arial 8 annotative piece of text. Let's just close that down and close the text editor. Now, of course, it's very small, and of course it would be, wouldn't it? Because that's 8 millimeters high, and this is 200. When I hover over the text, you can see that I get a symbol that looks like a cross-sectional area of a scale ruler, and that denotes that it's annotative. And I can now see this text as a preview, exactly what it's going to look like on the paper at various different scales. I can set the scale down here in the annotative part of the status bar. There's a pop-up here that shows me all the different scales. Now it's important to realise that this isn't going to change the scale of our drawing. This isn't going to change anything to do with the way that we need to draw or modify or anything. All it's doing is changing the text and dimensions and the way that they're displayed. So in here I could set this to 1:25. Unfortunately, AutoCAD doesn't come with 1:25 out of the box, so we have to create a custom scale. So we're going to click on here, click add, type in 1:25, and this is the important bit, set the scale properties. So 1 paper units equals 25 drawing units. Click OK, and I'm just going to move this down so that it sits in the right place in between 1:20 and 1:30. Click OK again, and now I can set this scale to 1:25. Now nothing's happened yet, and that's because I need to add the scale manually to this text object, and I can do that by right clicking, going annotative object scale, add current scale, and you can now see it's grown. And it's grown, and it's exactly the same size as this Arial 200 because we're now setting this scale to 1:25 for the annotative text. When I hover over here, I will be able to see that I've now got two little symbols, and that shows me that it's got multiple versions of that text. And if I change the scale back to 1:1, you can see that when I click, you can see that I get a preview of all the scales that are set for that piece of text. Now we can speed that process up if we click on this button here, which says add scales to annotative objects when the annotation scale changes. So if we click and switch that on, now that means that every time I change the scale on here, it will just add those in automatically, which is really quick. If you ever want to delete a scale from the annotative text object, then you can select it and go up to the Annotate tab at the top on the ribbon menu, go across to the right, and we've got two options. We've got Delete Current Scale, or we can choose to click on Add Delete Scales, and in the pop-up dialog box you can delete the scale there. Similarly, if you want to delete a scale from the annotative list, then you can go up to the Scales List button, and in the dialog box there you can remove it. You can't delete a scale if it's in use though. So I'm going to try and explain this further. So I'm going to just set the annotative scale back to 1 to 1, and I'm going to click on Layout 1 tab and come up to the Layout tab on the ribbon menu and insert a viewport. Now this is a piece of A4 blank paper. This is scaled to a random scale at the moment, so I'm going to change the scale to 1 to 25. There we go, and you can now see that this is a 1 to 25 representation of a 1 metre square. The text, which was 200, has shrunk down to be 8mm high, and the Arial 8 annotative text is actually showing exactly the same as 8mm. Now, if I set the scale here to 1 to 50, look, the annotative text remains at 8mm high, but everything else shrinks down even further, and that Arial 200 text is actually now 4mm high.